Hi, good day to you and welcome to my channel where I tutor you in science for free. The topic in this video will be transfer of thermal energy. This chapter is talking about how heat moves from one point to another. So basically, if you touch something and it feels warm or cold, it's basically the heat energy moving in or out of your skin, and the temperature sensor sends a signal to your brain. Heat is transferred mainly by three ways: conduction, convection, and radiation. So firstly, conduction. Conduction is the transfer of heat through a medium without the medium flowing. And this happens because the particles inside vibrate and hit each other, hit the adjacent particles with a harder force, and the heat is transferred from one atom to another laterally. And because of this principle, materials like metals, because they are in a sea of delocalized electrons, the electrons are free to move quickly from one end to the other end. So these electrons, they carry the heat energy quickly from one point to another. That's why they are good conductors as compared to materials like wood. So that's all for conduction. Remember that the particles gain the heat energy, they vibrate harder and faster, they hit the adjacent particles, or in the case of metals, the electrons gain the kinetic energy and move at greater speeds to the other regions of the material. However, if you talk about conduction in liquids and gases, because the atoms are spaced further apart, the collisions happen less frequently. The transfer of kinetic energy is a lot slower. That's why they are poor conductors of heat. Okay, next we go on to convection. Convection is the transfer of heat energy by means of convection currents within the fluid due to density differences. And note that fluid means materials that flow, things like liquid and gas. So convection works because when a zone of the fluid is being heated, it gains kinetic energy and it gets spaced further apart, and that zone becomes less dense. It floats to the top of the material, allowing the cooler, denser regions of the fluid to sink down and receive the heat energy. And by this way, the convection current is being set up and the fluids move around and the heat energy is spread throughout the whole fluid. That is why convection currents only occur in fluids, liquids and gas, not in solids, because the atoms are free to move around. Next, we go on to radiation. Radiation is the transfer of heat energy in the form of electromagnetic waves, like infrared radiation, without the help of any medium. There are three factors that you need to learn that affects the rate of the radiation, be it emission or absorption. So these are the three factors. If you are a good emitter, you will be a good absorber as well. So dull and black are better emitters as opposed to shiny and silver. Next is the surface temperature. If it is higher in temperature as compared to the surrounding, then the rate of the radiation will be greater. Lastly is surface area. So of course, larger surface area, the amount of area for the outlet of radiation is greater, therefore radiation happens faster. So next we go on to the application of heat transfer, and these are common items that you can find in your everyday life for good conductors of heat. So I won't go through too much into detail, as well as poor conductors of heat, which are the insulators. Applications of convection are these. So you can see that the heating element is always near the bottom of things like the kettle, and for cooling systems like the air conditioner, the unit must be at the top of the room so that the cold air can sink, allowing the hot air to rise, setting up a convection current. And using both will be things like the hot water system. So sometimes you want to shower, you need to use the hot water. In some situations you want the hot water, in other situations you want the cold water. So you need the heating element to be at the top just to heat up a zone of the water, and you can have a choice of hot and cold water. Applications of radiation will be these. So heat enters the greenhouse from the sun, the plants emit radiation, infrared radiation, and gets trapped within the glass house. The vacuum flask as well, they have shiny surfaces to reduce radiation outwards, and there is a cork material to insulate the container within it because it is a poor conductor of heat. And there is a layer of vacuum also, so that there is minimal transfer of heat from inside to outside or outside to inside. Let's go on to some questions. A house built in a warm country stays cool What wall material and color will be used for the house to be the coolest? It will be bad conductor of heat as well as light colors, so that it reflects away the heat that comes from the surroundings into the house. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Okay, this is a computer chip with a heat sink and metal fins. This heat sink keeps the computer chip cool, and heat is transferred away by conduction, convection, and radiation. So explain the difference between conduction and convection. So as mentioned earlier, conduction is the transfer of heat energy due to collisions and vibrations of particles. No medium movement has occurred. Convection is the transfer of heat energy due to difference of density in the medium itself. So next, explain the features of the heatsink that allow thermal energy to be transferred easily away from the chip. So it is stated there black metal fins. So I'll just talk about each of these words briefly and you get your 3 points. Okay, so black because it absorbs heat energy fast and emits it fast as well. That's why black color is chosen. Metal because it's a good conductor of heat to absorb the heat energy. Fins because it is there to create larger surface area, and it's vertical, so it catches more air currents, allowing convection currents to be set up. This allows heat to be transferred effectively away from the heatsink. Okay, filament lamp. Describe how energy produced by the filament is transferred by convection inside the lamp. So heat is generated from the filament. It heats up the air around the filament. The air gets less dense, they space out and they float to the top of the glass, allowing the cooler air to sink to the filament. This sets up a convection current within the bulb. Okay, next state why thermal energy is transferred by conduction through the glass surface of the lamp. So when the gas in the lamp heats up, it collides with the glass. So the heat is passed to the glass on the inner side. Therefore, they gain kinetic energy, they vibrate more vigorously. Due to glass being solid, they are closely packed. They vibrate vigorously and pass the energy from atom to atom, transferring the energy from inner surface to the outer surface. And that is all for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Do give it a like and subscribe and share it with somebody who needs to see this. And I will catch you in the next video. Bye!